Japanese and Scandinavian minimalism might look the same at first glance, with their focus on clean lines, open spaces, and the essentials. But while both forms of minimalism are rooted in simplicity, they come from completely different cultural traditions. One is about stillness and nature, while the other is about light and comfort. So today, you're going to learn the key differences between Japanese and Scandinavian minimalism, so you can see how each of them create a totally unique atmosphere. So the first thing I want to talk about is the difference in color palette between these two types of minimalism. Because Japanese and Scandinavian minimalism both rely on neutral colors, but they use them in different ways. For example, Japanese interiors feel warm, grounded, and nature-inspired, while Scandinavian spaces lean bright, cool, and airy, and are designed to reflect as much light as possible. So let's look at some Japanese spaces first. The palette here is rooted in natural, earthy warmth, right? It's got soft beige walls and woven cabinetry that are paired with the exposed wooden beams, which creates a space that feels calm and grounded. And even the off-white walls are warm without leaning into the territory of being stark or overly crisp. The wooden beams and woven doors here introduce layered shades of brown that feel aged and organic, and these tones echo the look of a traditional ryokan, which ties the room back to its natural roots. Nothing about it feels overly polished, it's all about honest, natural texture. And then these accents like the Buddha sculpture, the clay bowl, and this raw stone add depth without breaking the quiet mood. Each piece brings its own subtle contrast, but the palette stays soulful and muted. Even this rust orange chair in the corner manages to blend in with its nice sun-baked kind of tone in harmony with the room instead of shouting over the rest of the space. But now let's move to some Scandinavian spaces. Here we've got muted sage green walls that are anchoring the palette and making the blonde wood and rattan read a lot warmer. Right? The light bounces off of the pale floor, so the green stays really soft as opposed to being heavy, and the room just feels fresh, natural, and really calm. Here in the bedroom, the warm beige walls set this really optimistic base for the room that keeps the space bright without relying on white. You know, the pale oak floors and these little rattan details carry the same homey tone for this kind of cohesive flow all the way through the room. And the soft green accents that we've got in here add a bit of variation while still staying low saturation and not dominating the space. And then in this bedroom, the crisp white walls maximize the natural light and make the dusty teal bedding feel clean and super modern. All right, now let's move on to difference number 2, which really comes through in the materials and textures. Because minimalist design isn't just about what you see, it's also about what you feel. In Japanese minimalism, the materials are deeply connected to nature and imperfection. Everything is organic, textured, and intentionally raw. But on the other hand, Scandinavian minimalism also loves natural materials, but with a softer, cozier, and a bit more of a functional twist. So let's look at a few Japanese spaces to start. Here we've got tatami mats covering the floor in this woven straw texture, which gives a real natural feel underfoot. And to be clear, tatami mats are not just flooring. They're essential to traditional Japanese interiors, and their raw surface grounds the room in earthy authenticity. And using low furniture like floor cushions and futons reinforce this idea of grounding. And because these pieces are generally made with raw cotton or linen, they feel unprocessed and calming. So everything is humble, soft, and close to nature. And then here you're seeing shoji paper lanterns that are glowing this beautiful, soft, warm light. They're made from washi paper and bamboo, and they bring texture to any space without the clutter. And so the effect is a gentle atmosphere instead of visual noise. But check out the difference between those Japanese spaces and Scandinavian minimalist spaces. So some materials like cotton and linen are shared between Japanese and Scandinavian spaces, but as you can see here, these textiles are doing the heavy lifting, adding warmth and texture to an otherwise minimal setting. You know, the crinkled surfaces feel relaxed instead of stiff, and the look stays light, inviting, and just easy. For example, having this sheepskin draped over a chair makes the space instantly cozier, right? It softens the clean lines of modern spaces and just adds some tactile comfort. Nothing feels cold, it's just functional, soft, and livable. Or as you can see here, having a wool blanket with some subtle pattern brings depth without the visual clutter, and the texture adds coziness while still keeping the palette restrained. And so it's all about practical comfort that still feels emotionally warm. All right, but now let's get into some of the bigger stuff, starting with furniture design. Because Japanese and Scandinavian furniture both value simplicity, but how they express it is completely different. Japanese furniture is close to the ground, humble, and quietly blends into its space. While Scandinavian furniture is functional and stylish, it's often lifted off the floor and shaped with soft curves or iconic lines. And so looking at a few Japanese spaces here, in this first one, you can see that the dining setup is anchored by a low table and legless chairs. And the reason for that is that sitting close to the floor is a core part of traditional Japanese living. And so the effect feels grounded, intimate, and really humble. Now, here in this room, a platform bed and low seating keep the eye level close to the ground. Natural wood tones repeat across the trim, the benches, and the floor, which creates a true sense of visual consistency. And so the space feels steady, calm, and balanced. Now here, the raised tatami zone shows built-in flexibility. The cushions on the floor work for dining, for tea time, or just for casual seating, while the platform itself defines the room. And so it's a multifunctional design that stays open and flowing. And then here, the bedroom keeps the furniture intentionally quiet, with a futon laid directly on tatami. It's got a simple, low table that supports the space rather than dominates it, and so the overall atmosphere is still pure and peaceful. But let's skip over to Scandiland now. Here, the dining room features a pale wood trestle table with these wishbone chairs, all of them on slender legs, which keeps the floor space clear and makes the room feel open and light. Now, here by the window, the design is leaning into soft, ergonomic curves. We've got this rounded chair and the compact table that creates this cozy conversation spot without any visual bulk. And so the moment you experience here feels comfortable and really human. And then in the living room, the materials are mixed with intention. The pale wood frames, the linen texture upholstery, and a few subtle metal accents. And the lifted sofa keeps the sightlines clear while maintaining a calm, cohesive feeling in the space. And on that note, let's dive a little bit deeper into space, because in Japanese minimalism, space is treated with the same respect as objects. Emptiness, which they call ma, isn't a lack of design, but a deliberate pause, because it creates rhythm, calm, and allows light, energy, and attention to all interact freely. But Scandinavian minimalism doesn't aim for that same sense of stillness. It wants flow. And so the layouts encourage connection between zones, making each space feel social, casual, and comfortably lived in. Because in the Scandinavian view, it's not about what's left out, it's about how everything fits together. So here we've got a low chabudai table sitting on a tatami grid, which anchors this entire room. And then the long horizontal opening to the outside extends the sightline beyond the room, which opens up that space. And with the sliding panels fully open, the boundary to the balcony completely disappears. And here, a long tatami room is centered by this low table surrounded by zabuton cushions, with the wall on the right here receiving ambient light through these shoji panels. The corners of the room are left empty on purpose, and the uninterrupted axis creates this deep, layered sightline toward the garden on the far end. But contrast all that with these Scandinavian spaces. Here in the living room, you've got an open floor plan where seating, dining, and entry all flow without any barriers. Tall windows flood the space with natural light, and the layout feels connected, casual, and super bright. The dining zone is grouped into this cozy social spot with a long wooden table and bench, and the art and decor are placed with intention and plenty of breathing room. And in this kitchen, the built-ins and open shelves keep everything super practical, and the large window here makes the corner feel even more sunny and expansive. But now let's take a bit of a deeper dive into the mood and ambience of these spaces, because Japanese minimalism is rooted in stillness. It's not trying to feel cozy or styled, it's trying to create space for awareness. And so every detail supports a quiet, reflective atmosphere. And the mood isn't loud or warm, it's restrained, grounded, and intentional. But where Japanese minimalism leans into stillness, Scandinavian minimalism leans into warmth. For them, the goal isn't quiet, it's comfort. It's that lived-in, candlelit, cozy vibe that they call hygge. So check this out. Here we've got this tatami corridor opening to a Zen garden, which is framed in this beautiful, quiet symmetry. The light is entering softly, casting these subtle shadows across the floor, and the whole space just feels completely meditative. Now in this next image, nature is close, but still restrained, right? We've got a small courtyard with stones and a maple tree. And this brings plenty of life without overwhelming this interior. And so again, the mood feels calm and balanced. Now here, the wide window frames the green landscape beyond like a living painting. And the muted walls and seating keep the attention on the view, not on the room itself. And as you can see here, even a simple tea set on rough wood carries plenty of weight, because with so few objects, each one becomes significant and intentional, and the air itself feels like part of the design, still, quiet, and undisturbed. But in Scandinavian spaces, things are a little different. As you can see here, natural light is everything, with these wide windows left completely bare of any heavy curtains. So the room feels open to the outdoors, and it's filled with daylight at every hour of the day, assuming it's summertime. Now, in this second living room, we've got some pale wood tones and light upholstery that just give a bit of a soft glow. And even with minimal decoration, the effect is still breezy, not stark. And then in the kitchen and dining area, the warmth comes from layered soft elements and the presence of daily life. So you can see it's a very similar table and chairs setup with these wishbone chairs that we saw a few minutes ago, but adding something like the fresh flowers makes this space feel personal and real. So at the end of the day, both Japanese and Scandinavian minimalism strip design down to what really matters. But they express it in very different ways. Japanese minimalism feels like a meditative retreat, which is built on harmony, emptiness, and natural imperfection, while Scandinavian minimalism feels like a bright and cozy refuge, designed for comfort, light, and just everyday living. But regardless of whether you lean towards Zen calm, hygge warmth, or even a blend of both, the beauty of minimalism is that it adapts to the way you want to live. And so now that you can see the difference between Japanese and Scandinavian minimalism, the real magic is in pulling it off for yourself at home without blowing through your budget. So to learn how to do that, check out the videos I've linked to in the description below. And if you really want to take your design knowledge to the next level, watch this video up here to learn about a couple of smart furniture pieces that instantly transform any room into one that feels uniquely yours. I'll see you there.